Today is Susan Egan's birthday.
That's awesome. The day of us recording this. Love it.
So that'll be fun to mention.
All right.
I have to wonder for the both of you, did you come away from this movie with a gain in appreciation for Michael Bolton?
I've always really, really appreciated Michael Bolton, but
I think I'm very much in that boat where like I never hated or even disliked Michael Bolton. It's just the man's an incredibly talented singer, and I think that from watching this movie, it just solidifies his position in like kind of like 90s pop pantheon. So
perfect for this song.
Oh, yes. Perfect. Yeah, this and Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, sure.
You know that song, the Lonely Island one?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes.
That song, I'll talk about this more later, but like that Go the Distance was one of those, it's just it could have been so famous, so huge, but there are so many dialogue breaks that are like Broadway musical style, because if you listen to it on Spotify, there's just tons of emptiness where there's just instrumental breaks and then no singing, right? But when the lyrics are there, it's very much a Disney song, and I love that.
Oh, you don't have to defend. I love that song.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think I need to defend. Not here, anyway.
No, not on this podcast. Well, this is Why Wasn't It Better? And I am your host, Patrick Darms.
And I'm your co-host, Anton Paras.
On today's episode, we are headed to Mount Olympus for Hercules, Disney's most aggressively stylized, gospel-influenced pop myth remix of the Greek legend you thought you knew. Released at the tail end of the Renaissance, it trades classical fairy tales for muscle-bound heroics, a wisecracking Hades, and a soundtrack that sounds like Motown crash landing in ancient Greece. It's bold, colorful, and completely committed to its aesthetic, and yet somehow it never quite reached the cultural altitude of The Lion King or Beauty and the Beast, or frankly, any of the other films of the Renaissance. Is this an underrated swing that deserves more love, or a wildly creative experiment that doesn't come fully together? Let's find out why Hercules wasn't better, and here to go the distance with us is a return guest, Adam Hecht.
I'm back.
Adam, welcome back, Adam.
Thank you, gentlemen. Everyone's going to think that I am a Disney adult, and they wouldn't be wrong entirely.
Nothing wrong with that.
About my love for the Walt Disney Company. I'm excited to talk about Hercules. It was one of those, like Emperor's New Groove, was one of those things that was kind of, when it came out, I was in junior high. Maybe it was 97, so 8th grade. And it was like too cool for school to go see Hercules. But
right.
I ended up being exposed to it multiple times through like my younger cousins, and it always occupied a cool little place in my heart, especially I think for younger boys. And I'll touch on this. It's a great movie. It's just a great movie that, if I'm going to be spoiling the answer to your question already, right? Like, this to me was just is a home run. This was not a movie that didn't come together. This movie was together from start to finish. So I'm excited to talk about it.
We're excited to have you here because it seems like there's a lot of people who don't feel that way about this film. And we can maybe dig into why.
Mm-hmm.
I'll intro this for us.
All right.
It was released on the 13th of June, 1997 by Walt Disney Feature Animation, directed by the great duo John Musker and Ron Clements. The screenplay was written by Ron Clements, John Musker, Donald McHenry, Bob Shaw, and Irene Mitchell, and brace yourself for the number of folks mentioned in the story credits. Can Callion, which sounds like a Star Trek character, Kelly Whiteman, Randy Cartwright, John Ramirez, Jeff Snow, Vance Jerry, Kirk Hansen, Francis Glebus, Mark Kennedy, Bruce M. Morris, Don Doherty, and Tom Enriquez.
Designed by committee.
Designed by committee in a way, yes. Featuring the voices of Tate Donovan, James Woods, Susan Egan, happy birthday, Susan, Danny DeVito, and Rip Torn. Big year for Rip Torn. What else did he do in 1997?
Men in Black.
Exactly. Zed. The budget for Hercules was $85 million. That is $170 million adjusted for inflation. And the box office was $252 million. That's $505 million adjusted for inflation. The second lowest grossing film of the Renaissance. What was the lowest grossing?
The lowest grossing film of the Renaissance.
Are you just looking this up?
No, I'm looking at the list. I'm thinking.
I'll give you a hint. It's the one that everyone forgets is part of the Renaissance and really shouldn't be considered part of the Renaissance, but it is.
Rescuers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Oh,
I know it came out in the Renaissance and it's credited as a Renaissance movie, but it does not fit in with the rest of the Renaissance movies.
it doesn't. Not at all.
It's not
Great
a musical.
Great movie. But
I don't
doesn't fit
remember
it.
anything about it. I haven't seen it in forever.
They're in Australia.
Yeah, Rescuers Down Under.
There was the Komodo dragon that really liked eggs.
I'll have to see it again because we're going to cover it because it was a bomb. It made no money for Disney. It's a strange movie.
John Candy's in it.
Rest in peace, John Candy.
Yeah,
I
rest in
think I
peace.
remember the first one a lot better. That's when they're in New Orleans or Louisiana, right in the
That's
swamps or
that's
whatever.
a classic.
See, I'm the opposite. I remember Down Under more than I remember
Interesting.
the original, and I don't know why. Maybe because the Rescuers Down Under had McDonald's toys, and I
It
was
definitely
That's
did.
probably why. Yeah.
I was a big
Well,
fan
you
of
can talk
McDonald's.
yourself onto that episode too. Hercules has an 83% Rotten Tomato score. Bestowed with superhuman strength, a young mortal named Hercules sets out to prove himself a hero in the eyes of his father, the great god Zeus. Along with his friend Pegasus, a flying horse, and Phil, a personal trainer satyr, Hercules is tricked by the hilarious, hot-headed villain Hades, who is plotting to take over Mount Olympus. The man, the myth, the movie. Adam, I'm going to skip you because you already said why you wanted to appear on this episode. Anton, what's your history with Hercules?
Gotta love me some late 90s Disney films. I mean, I grew up with these. I know you guys grew up with these films. Hercules is one that I saw in theaters as a young child, followed up very soon with a VHS copy at home that we watched a lot. The music still stuck with me to this day. And this is also very distinct in my memory for the PS1 video game tie-in, which I played a ton. Really, really enjoyed that video game. Not all Disney video game tie-ins are created equal, but this one, and actually this era, was really, really great. And a shout out to the Toy Story Super Nintendo game. That game is also fantastic. But Hercules, yeah, I was very big on it as a child.
I saw this in the theater. I liked it, but I don't remember really much else about it. I was like, oh yeah, that was good. I was 9 years old, so I was starting to sort of discover other movies that I thought were cooler. Like, I saw this right around the same time that I saw Men in Black.
Men in Black was a 4th of July
movie,
weekend movie, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was right around here. And that movie was like way cooler to me than just an animated Disney movie, you know?
Right. Giant alien bugs and lasers and all sorts of Will Smith wisecracking left and right. Can't
hell
beat
of
that.
a summer. Because I had seen The Lost World Jurassic Park a few weeks before this on Memorial Day. Then Men in Black around July 4th. And then what else came out that year? Batman and Robin. I mean, nobody liked that. But regardless, I mean, later in the year, we've talked about this, Anton. I saw Titanic and Tomorrow Never Dies back-to-back weekends with my dad.
97 was a big one, man.
Great year for movies.
Yeah. I distinctly remember, I think it was McDonald's had the Batman and Robin tie-in with like the popsicle, like you could like freeze popsicles in the Batman molds.
Yes, I think that's what I remember, because they also had the cups were from Batman Forever.
Oh,
Batman and Robin was the mold. Yes. Okay. Good time.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention earlier that year in 1997 we got Star Wars the special editions.
We did.
The re-releases in theaters, which for a young up-and-coming movie fan like myself, pre-Phantom Menace, this was a massive deal. And I don't want to make this into a Star Wars episode, but I had seen the original trilogy on VHS prior to this. But these re-releases
in the theater,
totally different vibe. Like, this is amazing. Like, and I think by this point we knew the prequels were coming.
We did. And I distinctly recall the original, the updated editions coming out because it wanted to drum up hype for the prequels that were coming and introduce our generation into what it is to see Star Wars in the theaters.
It worked.
It did. And here we are, a couple of decades later, still fans of it.
It worked. It definitely worked.
Anton, this movie's 29 years old.
And still commercially viable.
It is, but I think this is such a great selection for Why Wasn't It Better, because this is certainly well remembered 29 years later, but people don't talk about this film the way they talk about Aladdin or Tarzan or Mulan or The Lion King. It's always low on the totem pole of the Renaissance films.
I get it. I get it to the extent that, and I guess we're just diving into it, right? Like, to me, like the immediate thing that jumps out to me about Hercules versus the other Renaissance films, Hunchback had this too. There's no real princess, right? We have Meg, but there's no princess attached to this, right? So we go from this string of Ariel, Belle, Jasmine, Nala to some extent, right? And my wife was arguing with me that Nala doesn't count. I was like, excuse me, that look that Nala gives Simba when they're adults.
We all know that look. We know exactly
Nala
what you're
counts.
talking about. Yes.
Exactly. Esmeralda started that trend of like, it's not really a princess, but Meg went a step further where you actually had a heroine who was in cahoots with the villain. It was wildly different than anything. And then, you know, the universe righted itself the next year with Mulan, right? Where you have one of the more famous Disney princesses. But yeah, this one to me is like, I think it didn't alienate, a bunch of kids because there wasn't a princess. But I think maybe it's why it doesn't live on and stick out in the memories of kids like that.
You might be onto something, because I mean, this did not even make $100 million in the United States. It topped at 99, which was a huge failure in the eyes of the Disney executives.
Oh yeah.
So it's for whatever reason, perhaps the one you're mentioning, perhaps more we'll talk about, this just did not resonate with audiences in 1997. It was kind of just meh.
Another Disney movie, which I wondered also if that plays into it too, like Disney fatigue, right? Every year you were expecting that next great Disney story to come out. And you can't deny that Hercules is an incredible story. Now, obviously, they sanitized the Greek, the actual mythology of it, because Zeus was a pig and a bull, and many other things that made it. But the story that's presented here is incredible. Classic hero's tale, classic redemption, elements of Greek tragedy, elements of Greek comedy. By all accounts, it should have done very well at the box office.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I want to add to that, and we'll dig into it when we go into the reasons, is preceding this film, the tone shift on the film and the orders from up top were very clear. And if you look at the makeup of this film and look at maybe a few films before, well, methinks it starts to kind of look a bit more like Aladdin than Hunchback or Pocahontas. Mm-hmm. So, well, I'll leave it there, but do we want to maybe go into one of our favorite segments, which is now like a regular segment of the show?
As it should be, the 6 Degrees of Warren Beatty's Sex Life, a.k.a. Warren Beatty's Dick Tracing.
Yay.
Our connection here is through Mr. Danny DeVito.
Nice.
By way of Jack Nicholson, by way of Michelle Phillips and or Diane Keaton. DeVito was in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Hoffa with Jack Nicholson. Mm-hmm. Nicholson dated Michelle Phillips and then later Diane Keaton, both of whom Warren Beatty dated. I almost wanted to say they dated Warren Beatty, but I don't know. I don't know if it's dating.
I thought you were going to say Danny DeVito married Rhea Perlman, who had dated Warren Beatty.
That would have surprised me, considering the level of talent that Warren Beatty went after.
It's either me or nobody.
Yep.
Well, as we know from Warren Beatty's autobiography, though, when Dustin Hoffman asked him verbatim, this is in the book, direct quotes, "You would have sex with any woman ever?" And Warren Beatty said yes. And Dustin Hoffman asked him why, and he said, "Because you never know."
Never know.
What an artist.
What a guy.
What a guy.
So production history for Hercules, narrated by Moses. Charlton Heston. Back in 1992, Disney called for a group of 30 writers and animators to pitch ideas for upcoming projects. Each person was given 2 minutes to present. Animator Joe Haidar had pitched the idea of doing a story from Greek mythology, and he produced a sketch of Hercules, along with a 1.5-page story outline. His concept was greenlit for development, but this is where Haidar thought his involvement ended. In November of 1992, following the hugely successful release of Aladdin, biggest movie of 1992, by the way, that's how big it was, directors Ron Clements and John Musker began to redevelop Treasure Planet. Aladdin co-screenwriters Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio subsequently took Clements and Musker's earlier ideas and wrote a treatment. Then studio chairman Jeffrey Katzenberg shot this down and suggested instead that they do an adaptation of A Princess of Mars, which Disney had held the film rights to. Clements and Musker were uninterested in this, so Katzenberg got them to agree to make another commercially viable film before he would approve Treasure Planet. No pressure, just make me another hit.
Make me another multi-million-dollar franchise spawning hit, and then you can do what you want creatively.
Yeah.
Right.
Makes sense.
It's no pressure.
Yeah.
Feels like standard Hollywood
Yeah.
contract stuff. You know?
Feels like exactly something Katzenberg would say.
Yes.
After passing on ideas for Don Quixote, The Odyssey, and Around the World in 80 Days, the directors found out about Hydar's Hercules pitch, and they chose that. Musker explained, quote, "We thought it would be our opportunity to do a superhero movie. Ron and I being comic book fans, the studio liked us moving on to that project, and so we did Hercules," end quote. Pre-production began in late 1993. The directors also sought inspiration from classic screwball comedies directed by Preston Sturges and Frank Capra. While working on the script, they consulted the works of Thomas Bulfinch, Edith Hamilton, Robert Graves, and other interpreters of Greek mythology until they reached the conclusion to not portray the traditional story of Hercules. Yeah. No shit.
Good.
Right around this time, too, the Kevin Sorbo Hercules, The Legendary Journeys was on TV, and that one stayed. That was also far from the actual Hercules story, but at least in that one, right, you got the sheer hatred that Hera had for Hercules. But that just, I don't think that would work in a Disney film. Not even close.
I was much more in tune to Xena, Warrior Princess.
That was
As one
on
should.
then, right? This was on then.
That was on then. Yeah.
The Hercules The Legendary Journey started, I want to say, 96 or 95, and Xena came probably around 97. It was a couple of years into the Hercules run where the Xena spinoff happened. So that stuff was definitely going on at this time.
So one of the things that stood out to me is they both stated that Hercules was the Michael Jordan of his era, and they were inspired by the correlation of the popularity of Hercules with sport athletes. I can kind of see that. Makes sense.
Yeah,
There's a nice
see
Michael
it.
Jordan reference in this movie.
Yeah.
Air Hercs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I thought that was funny.
And I think too, right? Like, you know, Greeks have a very storied history with athletics, the originators of the Olympics, and, you know, Hercules' 12 labors, a lot of them are, you know, they're all strength, speed, agility related. It makes sense that there's an athletics connection there.
There's just also a lot of really interesting meta humor around commercial viability of a hero versus an athlete, and then a film.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. Same time. This would have been very shortly. This film came out about 6 months or 7 months after Space Jam. So,
Oh, Jordan 11s came out that year.
yeah.
The
96.
Space Jams. Oh, man.
The best Jordans.
Epic.
I was one of those kids that never had Jordans growing up.
I
Never got into it.
I got them when I was like in college. I think in college was the first.
I was told, probably intelligently by my parents, I had to buy them myself.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wanted them.
Of course. Who didn't want them?
Right. No one didn't want them.
Yes. But go buy it yourself has a different ring to it.
It does. So the producer, Alice Dewey Goldstone, great name, and Musker and Clements, they went on a tour of Greece and Turkey along with a group of department heads in the spring of 95. Donny Osmond originally auditioned as the speaking voice of the title character, but he was turned down because his voice was considered too deep. He would end up getting one of the primary singing roles in Mulan instead. While writing the role of Philoctetes, Musker and Clements envisioned Danny DeVito in the role, but DeVito didn't want to audition. So Ed Asner, Ernest Borgnine, Red Buttons, and Dick Latessa were brought in to read for the part. DeVito was finally approached and accepted. Susan Egan auditioned for the role in every Disney animated film going back to Beauty and the Beast. She finally landed the role of Belle in the Broadway production. So that's how they stayed. She stayed on their radar. She pursued the role of Megara actively, and she revealed, quote, "Alan Menken initially blocked me from going after that part. He said the female lead in Hercules was supposed to be this cynical smartass, sounding nothing at all like sweet, innocent Belle," end quote. Menken eventually relented and allowed Egan to audition for the role. Anton, I know this is going to be your favorite part, so please take over.
Well, casting Hades proved challenging. DeVito recommended Jack Nicholson, but the actor was looking for something in the $10 to $15 million range. plus half the merchandise sales for Hades. Disney
Roughly a
counter
quarter.
offered.
He wanted roughly a quarter of the budget.
Yeah.
That was Nicholson.
Yep.
By the way, I think I also read, I forgot to write it down. I think their budget for this role was like $500K.
Yeah. How do you just one for As Good as It Gets?
No, he would have won after that. I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
he would have won the following year. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Look, Jack Nicholson knew to put Jack Nicholson first.
Look, he would have been amazing in
It's
his
fine.
role, but I
Yeah.
think this worked out.
Yeah. And well, look, long story short, Nicholson declined Disney's counteroffer. The role was then given to John Lithgow, but after 9 months of trying to make it work, they released him. He went on to do Third Rock from the Sun. Ron Silver, James Coburn, Kevin Spacey, Phil Hartman, and Rod Steiger all auditioned, as did producer Robert Evans.
This is insane.
Man.
This is one of the biggest WTF.
Like the Emperor of Paramount himself, Robert Evans.
Adam, you've seen him interviewed, I'm assuming.
Yes. It's
Insane.
Well,
when I read this, I just couldn't map any of that. Like why was he given the opportunity? I would love to hear some of the things.
We can tell you.
Yeah.
Put it this way. I reacted so strongly to this when I read it on Wikipedia. I had to go to the source. Normally I trust Wikipedia with most things related to movies, but I had to go to the sources. I was like, no.
For a hot second when I read it, I was like, no way. But then I thought about it and I'm like, oh, it's perfect. So Michael Eisner loved the idea of Evans because he described him as, quote, the devil. From one of our directors, John Musker. So, quote, Alice, Ron, and I met with Evans, who actually was interested in the part despite the fact that he hadn't acted in years. He was rumored to be in line to play the villain in the long gestating Chinatown sequel for Robert Towne, but that film never quite seemed to lift off the ground. Evans told us he knew how to play Hades. He said he had dealt with people like him. He mentioned Lucky Luciano, the mobster, with whom he experiences that were laden with threat and fear. Evans' take would be based on Luciano and his ilk. Evans told us he had done a lot of preparation, working extensively on the scenes at his home on Mulholland with his best friend and acting coach, Jack Nicholson. So Evans came and did the scenes on B stage, the dialogue recording studio on the Disney lot. He struggled. He knew it wasn't going well. He wanted to accommodate whatever might help him get convincingly into character. He wanted the lights down as low as possible to keep his deliveries low key. So we turned off nearly every light in the studio, and it was almost pitch black. He gave it another go, still not working. He wanted a casual, effortless quality to his reading, so he requested to record nearly reclining. So we arranged for him to be practically flat on his back on cushions as he purred into the microphone. What came out of the darkness in the prone, Gucci-shoed reclining figure was unfortunately a monotone as flat as the pieces of paper from which he read. He gave it a Herculean effort, but in truth, Robert Evans plays pretty much one character, and it's one that he invented and for which he writes all the lines. Robert Evans. Well, John Musker. Quite the words. So James Woods was invited to audition and surprised the directors so much they offered him the role on the spot. Clements and Musker fondly remembered a Time magazine cover of The Beatles illustrated by English cartoonist Gerald Scarfe. While working as a production designer on a production of The Magic Flute, Scarfe was invited to tour the Disney studios. He was then hired as production designer to produce a dozen drawings. Throughout production, he ended up producing over 700 drawings. By July 1995, Scarfe and 15 animators and designers began developing working prototypes for every character in the movie. That same year, the filmmakers embarked on a research trip to Greece and Turkey to research classic Greek mythology. 700 animators from Burbank and Paris would work on the film, and the soundtrack was written by composer Alan Menken and lyricist David Zippel. The film fell just short of $100 million at the domestic box office, which the studio considered a major disappointment. And the sequel, Hercules 2: The Trojan War, was subsequently canceled. It would be followed by Hercules the Animated Series, which ran on ABC in 1998. 4 of the episodes were cobbled together in a direct-to-video sequel called Hercules: Zero to Hero. In 2019, the film was adapted to the stage in the form of a musical. Additional music and songs were composed by Alan Menken and David Zappel. As of this recording, it is still running on the West End in London.
Hey now.
And that is our production history for Hercules.
As always, we want to thank everyone for listening or watching. If you're new to the podcast and you like what you hear, please follow, subscribe. We encourage you to leave comments on YouTube or Spotify or wherever you're listening or watching. We are on all the major social medias, Instagram, X, and best of all, Letterboxd. You can see our full list of films there that we intend to cover, as well as sub-lists. Links to everything are in the description. And as always, of course, if you really like what you hear and you want to throw a few bucks our way, head on over to patreon.com/WWIB podcast. You can support us directly there and get access to episodes a full week early and ad-free, plus some bonus content. So with that being said, let's talk Hercules. Why wasn't it better? Number one reason, I was trying to think of stuff that separated this from other films in the Renaissance. This does have a lack of depth to it. This is kind of a light, fluffy movie. Of all the Renaissance films, I'd say apart from, The Rescuers Down Under, like we were kind of talking about earlier, this seems to get talked about the least. Why?
Well, you mentioned the depth piece, and I'm really curious. I think there you can kind of point to aspects of even the character's upbringing versus other films in the Renaissance. Being an orphan, if you're Aladdin in Aladdin, is already that's a bit heavy. But in this film, you already have a pretty clear line to Hercules coming from Zeus and having god lineage. So I think maybe that takes a bit of the depth out. But I was curious, where else do you kind of look in the film and say there's not enough quite depth here?
Even the stakes, I think, are low from Hades' point of view, right? What is literally the worst that could happen if Hades wins? Zeus is still immortal. And Hades runs Olympus, and maybe the Titans are back, but it's just not. There's not a lot of risk, I think. Right?
It's unclear.
What do you mean?
To your point, exactly. If Hades takes over, what happens?
What changes for anyone? Really, right? Zeus is pissed off because the Titans escaped. Maybe Zeus gets locked where the Titans were, but at the end of the day, Zeus is still immortal. All the other gods are still immortal. There's no real risk of death for any of them. So, and Anton, as you were saying, right, there is, Lion King, Mufasa, Aladdin's an orphan, King Triton's at risk in The Little Mermaid. With Hercules, he's not an orphan. We've established it. His parents are in no danger. He himself, yes, he was in danger at the start of the film, but, there's some low-stakes, bumbling villains in Pain and Panic, who, by the way, excellent henchmen.
They're fun.
If I do say so myself.
Who can do, what's his name?
Bobcat Goldthwait?
Yeah, who can do Bobcat's voice? Actually...
You're lugubriousness?
I really looked up to you growing up.
You mean if he finds out?
Oh, wow. You two are pretty good at that. I'm a little disturbed. That's okay, though. But yeah, just the whole story feels low stakes to me. And even though it is a heroic tale, you also have what amounts to a superpowered main character. He's not immortal, but he has super strength. Aladdin, Simba, none of them had that.
Oh, yeah. And on top of it, too, Hercules has not only god level parents, he also has farm parents that are also still alive.
Right.
And they love him very much.
Yeah, so he comes from a very well-loved home.
And we get no time with them. Within 5 minutes of screen time, they find him as a baby, and then within 5 minutes, they're like, okay, Hercules, take care.
And sorry, let me just erase the whiteboard for a sec, and this will be right up the word Superman origin story.
For sure, yeah.
Well, that gets back to what they wanted to make a superhero movie, and seems like they've accomplished at least part of it. Because as we were saying, right, you can't tell the tale of the real birth of Hercules because not Disney at all. So of course you go with the Superman one. A couple of farmers find a superpowered child who can't control his strength and must go on a quest to learn how to control it and see where he came from.
And they instill good values into him that will guide him along the way to use his powers for good.
Only for good, never for anything else, which is something else that I found interesting about this film. There's never any real temptation for Hercules to switch to evil. Hades offers him the bargain, like, hey, I'll sap your strength, don't attack me for an entire day, blah, blah, blah. But
well, his real temptation is just love. Yeah.
The P
word.
But it is. Seriously. That's the temptation here. It is.
Passion.
Yes, passion. Sure.
Correct. That's the P word we're all talking about in this particular
He's got a
film.
lot of passion in the form of Megara. I was thinking about the two films that bookend this. The Hunchback of Notre Dame, probably the darkest thing Disney's ever done. Yeah. And then Mulan, which is far more dramatic than this. Both films have far more mature, emotional themes and sequences in them. This is very much comedy first, epic second. By the way, I don't think that's a fault.
No.
Not all of these films need to have the same emotional wavelength, but I have this theory that that's why this movie is such an outlier. Like even what's the last film of the Renaissance? Tarzan? The emotional beats in Tarzan are extreme compared to this.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's jarring to go from Lion King, which I think balanced the drama and the comedy like expertly.
Yes.
To then you go Pocahontas, you then go into Hunchback of Notre Dame, which also the tone was a bit off. But then Hercules itself, very much a action comedy.
Yeah. Well, because, again, going to what you bookend it with, there's the religious inquisition, there's a country-spanning war, which is necessitating the drafting of children and grown and older people. And sandwiched in the middle of that is a pretty low-risk tale of a hero and his sidekick and his trainer doing fun stuff and telling jokes while we're at it. And even the villain, right, like, is not, and I'm sure we will come to James Woods' performance as Hades.
We will.
But it is, even the villain to some extent is comic relief. There's some scary sequences when he gets angry, but for the most part, he's sharp, he's witty, he's sarcastic. He's got a decent joke per minute ratio of him on screen. So it's just not it's not as heavy. And to your point, that's great, right? I don't always want this heavy, burdensome film. Sometimes I just want to laugh. I don't want to enjoy a low stakes, fun time when watching a movie.
Yeah, not every film needs to hit the same level of emotional depth. I don't need, like the Mufasa's death scene in The Lion King is pretty traumatizing even for me now, all these years later. I don't need that in every Disney movie. That's okay.
It's perfectly fine. As a matter of fact, I encourage you to not do that in every movie.
To be fair, there's also, I think that there's not necessarily anything for an audience to be able to anticipate that that's what the tone's going to be going into this film. But especially if word of mouth is, I mean, like, it's a very like funny kids movie, not a lot of depth to it. Like, I think it's much harder for all audiences to want to go in, and I can see that really impacting ticket sales.
So I was thinking about the relationship between Phil and Hercules. It reminds me of the genie in Aladdin to some extent, right? Even to the, Phil calls Hercules kid. The genie calls Aladdin kid multiple times, right? So there's a parallel there, but even the story of the genie is much darker than Phil.
Yeah.
Right? Phil trained a bunch of warriors. Yeah, a couple of them died. Cool, but like that happens, right? To warriors. The genie was essentially a slave, and all he ever wanted was freedom, right? Phil was just, hey, it'd be really cool if I could train a hero who then became a hero, did heroic stuff. There's that buddy sense of it there, but there's a much lighter tone to it than Genie and Aladdin.
It's a great point about the genie. Like, it's pretty tragic.
Stuck in a land for 10,000 years.
Yeah. Now I need to go back and watch Aladdin. Haven't seen that in a while. What a banger. So
one of, if not the best.
It's
so agree with that.
No arguments here.
And it's just weird too, right? Like the Greek literature, when you study literature, like and the Greeks are so famous for tragedy and darkness and heaviness, right? And this has all the elements of it, right? There's the muses who act like the chorus. There's I mean, I think the scariest characters are probably the Fates.
Yeah,
right?
and even
Yeah.
then, they have very funny lines. Indoor
They're-
plumbing.
The
Gotta
one
be
eye,
big.
they all share an eye. Like, that's funny stuff. But like,
Yeah.
all the elements of Greek literature and drama are there. They're just not. They're not leaned on.
The Fates are. I mean, that's like that's straight out of Macbeth. The Three
Yeah,
Witches.
the
And
Three
but
Witches.
they are the most Gerald Scarfe characters in this film.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
They're right out of the wall.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But keep in mind who directed this, right? I think
Mhm.
this was perfectly on brand for Musker and Clements. They're a fantastic duo. Almost every animated film we cover, Anton, we always bring up the fact that animation directors rarely get talked about the way live action directors do. These two gentlemen deserve a ton of praise. I mean, they have directed The Great Mouse Detective, The Little Mermaid, Aladdin. Then they would go on after this to do Treasure Planet, The Princess and the Frog, and Moana. Like, it's pretty great body of work.
That's a hell of a string of hits right there.
Doing great. Yeah.
But what's the worst film they directed? Treasure Planet?
Define worst, right? Like worst critical
Yeah.
performance or like worst film over. Like it's tough.
I mean, they worked on animation on The Fox and the Hound. That's really far back for them.
Yeah, good. I mean, great point. They've done a lot more for Disney than just the films I mentioned. That's just what they directed, but they have a lot of other credits.
Yeah, so they know their way around the block. I kind of wonder
that they were like, hey, no, you can't direct the film that you want to direct until you direct this one more critical hit for us.
The impossible task.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into the good stuff now. Not that wasn't good, what we just talked about, but the animation is the second reason why this allegedly wasn't better. Because this shocked me.
Allegedly. That's the right word.
If you read the contemporary reviews of this film, the biggest criticism was centered on the animation. Hold your thoughts. I want to read you both some quotes here because I don't know what the hell movie these people watched, but it wasn't the same movie that we're talking about right now. James Berardinelli of Real Views said, quote, "This approach makes the film look rushed and at times incomplete. It's never a visual marvel. Even the computer-generated scenes fail to impress. The sequences intended to offer the biggest spectacle, Olympus and the underworld, provoke little more than a yawn," end quote. Desson Howe of the Washington Post, quote, "Some of the worst I've ever cringed through, including the corner-cutting junk of Don Bluth movies and every trashy cartoon that passes for entertainment on Saturday morning television. In Hercules, ancient Thebes looks like a hastily sketched field trip location from public TV's The Magic School Bus, and no self-respecting immortal would be seen dead in this simplistic rendition of Mount Olympus," end quote. Gene Siskel was surprised at, quote, "how soft and cheap the animation looks," end quote. What were these people smoking? This movie looks incredible.
First of all, I will not stand for Magic School Bus slander on my watch. Secondly, if they were smoking anything, they would have appreciated the animation much more because it is crisp, vibrant. It is some of the most gorgeous, both background and foreground animation that, in my opinion, Disney ever produced. I have no idea where these reviews came from. I don't know what they were watching. I have no idea what they were watching.
Anton, of all the films that we've covered on this podcast, we don't often read full quotes from reviewers, but I had to bring this up because I actually haven't talked to you about this yet, Anton, but I just don't get it.
Look, I agree with you both. I just feel like very unfair quotes and just very unfair take from these critics. I just think that this deserves way more credit for its animation and style. We can already say like the style itself is very inspired, not only across the different people that have worked on it over the years, but also just the clear like Greek influence on the more modern animation. I love the Hydra fight scene. I love when they're in Hades. It's just, yeah. So the underworld, not in Hades.
The underworld. Yeah. I watched this in 4K for the first time, obviously, preparing for this episode, and there's a close-up shot of the Hydra. And yes, I know the Hydra was partially computer animated, but it's beautiful. Beautiful is the only word that I can use to describe that scene of the Hydra. So even if you aren't a fan of Scarfe, right? Which, okay, I can get it. A lot of his animation and work is weird and wonky, but he first of all toned his style way down for this movie, right? This is to me quintessential Disney animation, and it almost reads as if these reviewers were just Scarfe haters and would say anything because they just didn't like him, and that was it.
I think that's it. I mean, he is admittedly, to your point, it's a very extreme style of animation. This looks very different than the films that had come before it, right? Hunchback, Pocahontas, Lion King, etc. But I love the fact that Disney took this risk, and I think it kind of was a creative risk for them to hire someone like Scarfe, who you would never imagine in a million years working with Disney. But as someone who is I'm a huge fan of Scarfe's work, this is so fascinating to me because he's basically, he had done film work prior to this, obviously, most famously with Pink Floyd, but now he's got the backing of Disney in this $85 million project. And what's so cool about this film is his fingerprints are over pretty much every frame of the film. You can see his design influence. I love it. I think it was a perfect pairing.
And even with him there and seeing his influence, are you guys familiar with the Disney look? Right, they talk about the Disney look all the time, right?
Yeah.
So, cast members at Disney have to conform to a certain look. When Disney animators are drawing things, they have guidelines on how to make things cute. Look at Phil. Look at when Pain and Panic take the form of the orphans, right, that are trapped under the rock. Even look at Hercules and Pegasus when they're children. Very clear Disney look for those characters. You could swap out Phil and Thumper the Rabbit from a frame.
Great point.
And it's right there. So again, to say that Disney dropped the ball on the animation, it's a wild, wild accusation that I find it very off-putting for prominent film critics to have written that.
Yeah, this film doesn't get enough praise, Anton. This is exactly the kind of creativity and uniqueness that I think Disney lacks today. I wish they did stuff like this now. They don't.
I think a part of it too is just the choreography in the film that we really have to. I also really have to applaud. I think that the fight scenes in this are much more intensive than any fight scene I think leading up to it from previous Disney films or from previous films in the Renaissance. And I thought that also stood out to me. It looked very clean. I think the physics of everything also looked very clean, and it looked very smooth. And I really, again, have to give credit to this team, and I don't see I really don't see the criticisms holding true.
This is some of the most unfair, unfounded criticism I've ever read about a film we've covered. All the reviewers that I quoted earlier, they're objectively wrong.
I love it.
I mean, it's a really great too to go back. There is the art book to the original drawings and concept art. Looks gorgeous.
You were peeping it.
Yeah.
But I'm not even joking about objectively wrong. To say that this is TV level animation, that's wrong. I'm sorry. It's incorrect.
Yep. Oh, we talked about it with Emperor, right? Emperor, okay, we talked about how that had a Saturday morning vibe.
They were cutting corners there.
100%. Which, wild that they talked about cutting corners in that review for Hercules when Olympus itself, when I read that quote about Olympus, I was like, it's just wrong. It's wrong.
Flat out wrong.
Olympus is designed beautifully, and the way that they created the hue along all the buildings on Olympus and the glow on the immortal characters, right? All of that. Beautiful animation. It conveys the messaging that they want it to convey. I, as a viewer, I was not yawning when I looked at Olympus or the underworld. I was engaged. I was enthralled. I loved every second of those background images.
Yeah, one of my favorite designs is just the different Titans representing all of the elements, except for the Cyclops. That one kind of stood out as a not one of the elements. I even remember I had thought of that as a kid. I'm like, what element does he represent?
He represents
Earth,
big fat monster guy. That's what he represents.
Yeah, no, I just, but again, I just felt like it was just so unique and so well done. I think even when you think more and more of how close this is tied to, Adam, you mentioned the hero's tale, the superhero aesthetic that also invokes. This story also is just very closely tied to the superhero origin story of Superman, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And it reads it really watches and reads like something out of a comic book in the best ways possible.
I like that you bring that up now, because before we move on from the animation, I want to make sure we talk about the Hades animation, right? Because Hades is very comic booky to me. Even the sharp lines and the auras and the way he changes colors, the way when his moods change. Like, to me, the animation on Hades is it doesn't rival the animation on the genie from Aladdin. Not to bring back the genie, but it's ever shifting. He morphs back and forth. He's very fluid, is the term I use to describe him. He moves like liquid. That's beautiful animation done on the Hades character.
This film does not get enough credit. This is some of the best animation work the studio's ever done, like all around.
All around.
Hades is a great example of it, obviously, but I mean, everything both of you were mentioning, it's just, I think that's why, for my money, this has aged tremendously well, because they weren't chasing some trend at the time, which is what I really like about it. This is so graphic and so bold, and it's such a distinct move to hire Scarfe that I think this has aged so well all these years later.
Yeah, I think too, a big part of this, and we'll touch on the dialogue a bit, there aren't too many references that dates this back to the 90s. Some references, but for the most part, I think that a lot of the comedy, a lot of the way it's presented, there's a lot of stylings, again, that does put it as a bit more timeless with still feeling modern.
That's a really good point. For a funny movie, there's almost no like topical humor in it. Yeah. So you can watch it now and you don't have to have grown up in the 90s to catch any of the references. They're there. There's a couple of them.
But like Air Herc is still relevant now. Stuff like that.
Right. Because the Jumpman and Jordan, they're still famous. Like, there's no way around that. And like, the last thing I'll say, I think, on the animation is there was a scene that stuck out to me, and it's a throwaway scene, but it emphasizes the attention to detail in this movie. There is a goat, and he's hopping along, and you hear the goat clop clop of the hooves. And when he gets to a certain point, he starts hopping on something that's bronze, and the clop clop of the hooves changes to clop clop on metal. It's obvious, it's distinct, it matches very well with the animation, and that, to me, that attention to detail of the sound design matching with the animation so closely and so well is like it. And it's early in the movie. I think it's the scene right before Hercules destroys the whole market, right? Like, it's so early in the movie, and it sets the tone of the rest of the movie for me. It was one of those things where I was like, my wife saw me writing something down when we were watching it. She's like, "What are you writing?" I was like, "Oh, I like the sound design of where the hooves hit." But that kind of stuff, to me, is just like, it's evidence that spits in the face of these guys saying, like, there's no, like, this is a TV level effort. Just, come on, insane.
Well, good of you to call out the sound design for this film, because the sound designer is a gentleman named Gary Rydstrom. Do you know who he is?
I don't.
Okay. He's basically like the John Williams of sound designers. He is a 7-time Academy Award winner. Here's some of his Oscar wins. He won 2 Oscars for editing and mixing for Terminator 2 Judgment Day, 2 Oscars for Jurassic Park, an Oscar for Titanic the same year this came out, 2 Oscars for Saving Private Ryan. He worked on Phantom Menace, Minority Report, Finding Nemo. Like, no big deal.
No, that's a fairly standard resume.
Yeah, that's who did the sound design of this film.
Goodness.
Okay, well, that makes sense now why I got so hit by that, because you have a titan, no pun intended, a titan of the industry.
Yeah, you got the goat doing the sound design.
The goat for the goat. That's it. Like, wow, what a resume. Wow.
Yeah.
Good for that guy.
Imagine talking to an actor and you're this guy and they're like, yeah, like this guy won an Oscar, and you're like, I have 7.
I have 7 Oscars for some of the most famous seminal movies of all time.
Yeah, because you think about Jurassic Park and Saving Private Ryan, the sound design is one of the first things you think about.
100%.
The roar of the T-Rex is just, I can play it in my head, and as crystal clear as the first time I heard it. Like, this is it. That's what a dinosaur sounds like. That's what 6-year-old Adam was like, yep, that's what a T-Rex would sound like.
So it's clear, a lot of attention to detail here, especially for this film.
Speaking of sound, let's talk about the voice cast. I think anytime you can get Charlton Heston, a.k.a. Moses, to narrate the beginning of your film, you're off to a good start.
He's invoking the right vibe.
He has an incredible voice.
Yeah.
This was the time of the gods. It's like, just deep. What a perfect narrator's voice.
And How many lines does he have in it? Like the first
3,
30 seconds
4,
of the movie? Yeah, that's it.
Did you remember they also did the same thing a year later and they got him to narrate the intro to Armageddon?
I think I might have blocked Armageddon out of my head.
But he's talking about the asteroid. He's like, it has happened before. It will happen again. You're like, yes, Charlton Heston, it will.
Just because you said so, because you were willing it into existence with your voice. So it's off to a strong start. Right into Rip Torn as Zeus.
First we get the muses.
Oh, right. That's
fantastic.
Right. I have so many notes written on the muses, but what it all boils down to me, this is actually part of why I think this wasn't better, right? Why I think this didn't do better is that as much as I love the gospel and, R&B influences of the muses, I don't think audiences were ready for it. In a movie about a Greek god, right? You have this unbelievably powerful set of voices doing unbelievably upbeat and powerful kinds of music, church music, right? For all intents and purposes. And I just don't think people knew what to do with that. I love the muses, don't get me wrong. I think they're one of the best parts of the movie. But I can understand why some people were like, wait a minute, why is this in the Hercules movie? Right? Like, why is there gospel music in this?
It's definitely out of left field.
I think you touched on something that I feel more and more is that there are so many aspects that feel very ahead of its time for this film. That concept of invoking like this gospel music, a lot of blues elements in the music with Greek mythology. By the way, that's like a massive hit right now with Hades Town.
Which is true.
Now audiences get it.
Right.
But back then, probably a lot harder to translate.
I actually wrote the phrase avant-garde in my notes. Ahead of its time, avant-garde, that's it. Right there. Like having that, it doesn't match it, but it does. And like invoking the muses is something that happens in literature during an epic, right? This is going to be an epic story. The muses are there, linking gospel to the story of gods. It's all there if you look for it, right? Which is another, like the story itself may lack depth as we discussed, but there's a lot of cool, fun stuff to unpack in this for people that are fans of film. Anyway, there's a lot of really good stuff to unpack with this film.
Voice cast. Tate Donovan, fine job as Hercules. I don't think anything special, but
perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, he's, what reminded, I mean, Anton, you were saying Superman, I think very much so. He's also kind of a dumbass, like the way Goku is in Dragon Ball Z. He's a dumbass, but you root for him. You're like, man, he's dumb.
Yeah, like, very similar upbringing for Goku.
All brawn, no brains.
Yeah,
perfectly fine.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's a fault of this film. There's not much to his character.
Well, that's it. Yeah. Hercules isn't exactly a deep character. He has a sense of justice. We keep using the Superman analogy, right? If you look at Superman, you want to talk about a flat character. Old school Superman, just about as flat as you can get. Don't tell Jerry Seinfeld that I said that. Hopefully Jerry doesn't watch this podcast. But I just don't think there's a ton of depth to the Hercules character, which is to me like it's why the voice acting was fine for Hercules.
Yeah,
perfectly.
Yeah. Then they make his character go Super Saiyan at one point.
They do.
Right.
He starts to glow. His hair gets more blonde.
Yeah, he does go Super Saiyan. Whoa.
Now we can talk about James Woods.
Oh, goodness.
He's high on the bracket of Disney villains.
Let's not talk about James Woods, the person he is today. Let's focus on James Woods, the performance of a lifetime.
Yes. And to his credit,
Hades.
He has repeatedly stated he thinks this is his best performance.
I can't argue with that at all. And I loved him in like a lot of stuff. He's a great guest star in The Simpsons. One of my favorite guest stars on The Simpsons.
One of my favorite episodes. Yeah.
Yeah. When he curses out the cheese. Oh,
he's really funny on Family Guy.
Yep. James Woods High School. He's in Family Guy. Yep. I don't remember the name of the show. I think it was called like Shark or something. He would play like an attorney. It was like in the early aughts.
He was really funny as himself on Entourage.
Yes.
And of course, had some very serious roles as well. He's been in several Oliver Stone films.
Yeah.
Yep. And literally none of them compare to Hades. None of it.
Yeah.
None of it compares to Hades.
It's over the top in the James Woods fashion that you didn't know that you needed in 97.
Yep. And while I could see Jack Nicholson doing a decent job with Hades, it wouldn't have come close to what we got with James Woods in the role.
Yeah, there's a lot where, you know, people talk about how legendary Robin Williams was as the genie. And I feel like this invokes a lot of that same mystique, a lot of that same energy, but it's still very distinct from that. It's still its own thing. This real, like, James Woods' performance definitely on the Mount Rushmore of Disney voice acting. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, because there's always the legend that the animators had to redo some of the work they did for the genie to match Robin's impressions, right? And I don't know, I looked for this, I couldn't find anything on this, but I'm willing to bet they had to redo some of the Hades animations to match James Woods' delivery. That slinky, slithery, just almost like skin-crawling creepiness of the way he talks and the bargains that he strikes. It's good. It's just really, really fucking good. The way he does it.
He's so perfect. He's the thing too. I love about when you first meet his character at the I guess the celebration of Hercules' birth on Mount Olympus. Yeah. When he first shows up to the party and he tries to tell that joke. What does he say? I haven't been this choked up since I got a piece of moussaka stuck in my throat, and like nobody laughs, and he's like, huh? And he's like, he kind of wants them to like him.
Yep.
It's such a great character. I was going to try to write down some of his best quotes, and I couldn't pick any because he's just going a mile a minute. This manic energy. It's such
he steals every scene that he's in.
He really does. He's supposed to steal every scene he's in. He does. I don't know where you'd put him on the Disney villain bracket, but he's a 2 seed, a 3 seed. He's high.
He's real high.
I love reading the descriptions of he's like a Hollywood agent that is just will pummel your soul until he gets
Robert
what he wants.
Evans-y, maybe.
Yeah.
Ooh.
and that's why I remember thinking like, oh, it's perfect. That would have been perfect if Robert Evans could voice act, which clearly he couldn't.
Can't act.
But James Woods, oof.
Boy, can he. And boy, does he crush it.
He absolutely crushes it. It's, I mean, obviously, like, you can't give an Oscar for supporting actor to a vocal performance, but, well, hello, Kitty. If he had been nominated for this, no one would have objected.
Yeah, I think and this is where I really love the marriage of the voice acting, the animation. Adam, you made the really good point of the fluidity of the character. And with the speed at which James Woods would deliver lines, nothing is ever lost with the delivery because the animation is at the same tempo. Whether it's suddenly you're having a subtle delivery of Hades trying to get his point across, to then the red hot fire intensity that you also see within his hair, the body, the size. Like sometimes you feel like he's at normal human height, and then for some reason he's 15 feet tall. Yep. And it's gorgeous animation tied perfectly with fantastic voice work.
No. Gene Siskel says the animation is terrible. So no,
it's just baffling to me. Now, this is no fault of James Woods's, but I think one of the flaws with this, he's not a physical match for Hercules. At no point does he fight Hercules, which is frankly a little disappointing for a Disney film. Hercules just knocks him out or punches him in the face and then just knocks him into like the Well of Souls or whatever you call that thing. Yep. And you know, that's it. Could have used a bit more there maybe, but that's no fault of James Woods's.
There's a in the there's one of the God of War video games where you fight Hades, and I was like, man, they should have got James Woods to voice this like giant, hulking, terrifying Hades, and finally like get James Woods in a fight as Hades. It would have been nice. But yeah, that's a great point, Pat. Like it would have been great to see a Hercules, like a true god fight, Hercules versus Hades. But I almost wonder, like James Woods, no matter what the dialogue was, would have just walked all over Hercules. There was it wouldn't have worked.
Right.
It would have been so one-sided.
I'm curious. Was it God of War 2 where Kratos fights Hercules?
I think it's one of them. I played the first two. I think so.
I think it's God of War 3 because I have it on the PS5. And that's the remake.
He uses the boxing gloves that are like also like the lion heads.
Yes. Yeah. Oh man.
Two things about
Hades.
One, he smokes a cigar in this film. This is one of the last times we would see tobacco use in an animated Disney film.
Interesting.
Oh, I know.
I don't even think I caught
I know
that.
the other time.
Yeah, we talked about it, Anton.
Yeah.
What is it?
Atlantis.
Yes, Atlantis is the last time you see a Disney animated character smoking.
Interesting.
Second, during the Hydra fight, when he tells Pain and Panic, relax, guys, it's halftime. That occurs at the exact halfway point in the film.
That's so funny.
Kind of cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder if it was
Had to
purposeful.
be intentional.
Right? Had to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Also, peak of his career too for James Woods, like the 90s, like especially like this era is when he was getting his best roles in Hollywood.
Yeah. I think this is
and-
before anyone knew he was nuts.
Yeah, so we got like in his prime James Woods, which should not be understated. That's
Have
great.
you either of you seen the film that he was in a year earlier, from a year prior to this, where he was nominated for an Oscar called Ghosts of Mississippi?
Oh yeah.
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh my goodness, Adam. He plays in heavy old man makeup a KKK member who assassinates a civil rights leader, and you see old man makeup racist murderer James Woods, and it's an incredible performance.
Yeah, it's as racist as you expect the dialogue to be.
Yes.
All right. I'll check it out.
It's definitely worth watching. I don't know if it's a great movie, but he's really good in it.
I'll check it out for the performance of James Woods now that I'm in a James Woods phase, considering I've just watched Hercules and I'm obsessed with him now. I'll check it out. All right. Ghost
You're
of
obsessed with
Mississippi.
James Woods' performances, not James Woods.
No, not James
Okay,
Woods.
just so
No.
we clarify.
Yes,
All right.
performances.
Moving along to the rest of the cast, Susan Egan, happy birthday, voicing
Happy birthday,
Megara.
Susan Egan.
Happy birthday, Susan Egan.
Not
Fine.
your usual Disney female role, though. I mean, pretty complex character.
She reminded me of Phoebe from Friends.
That's a good one.
Like just very like gonna smirk from time to time.
Yeah.
Not really that into it. Whatever she's working on.
Been around the block a few times.
Right. But like, you know, I said earlier that she's actively in cahoots with Hades in this movie, and I think that separates her from a lot of the Disney female leads, or all of the Disney female leads to some extent, right? And I can understand why they wanted somebody who was not Belle for that role, right? Like, but I think she does an admirable job, right? The writing for Meg, right? Like the actual lines that she speaks, they're not great. She's also, for someone who has like, of all the characters with the most tragic history, right? Being willing to sacrifice herself for someone who then just leaves her anyway. Like, you want to talk about a Greek tragedy, that's it. Right there.
She's the most interesting character in the film.
Yep. But I think her dialogue leaves a lot to be desired because, you know, I mean, can you quote anything, right? What does she really say? That's that great.
She keeps calling him Wonder Boy. That's kind of the only thing I remember.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
look, I have to give the credit to. She actually has one of my favorite songs in the film.
I won't
Okay,
say
that's
I'm
a
in
good-
love.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like one of my favorite songs in the
Awesome.
film.
Great song. But other than that,
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like the dialogue is what it is. I mean, rest of the voice cast: Rip Torn as Zeus. We don't see a ton of the other Greek gods. I do like the jokes like that Hermes makes, where he's like gives Hera the bouquet, and he's just like, I had Orpheus do the arrangement. Like that's a great joke.
that's a great
funny.
joke. That's a very good joke.
When I was younger, just funny sidebar, I thought it was John Goodman as Zeus. And then, yeah,
Oh,
and
okay.
like
I can see why
yeah.
you thought that.
Yeah, it's not out of left field.
and I'm like, I wonder, like, and I remember even thinking, like, wow, he must be so busy. He's on Roseanne and doing Hercules.
Well, hey, you know what? Rip Torn was busy. He was on Men.
Yep.
He was in Men in Black, and he was
That's
in
right.
Hercules.
Was he still on the Larry Sanders Show at this point,
I'm not sure.
or was that over by '97? I don't know.
Yeah,
We've been right
Something to
around
look
there.
into. Yeah.
What about Danny DeVito? Like, I'm torn on Danny DeVito's performance
I'm
as
into it.
Phil.
I think
yeah.
he's a great
Yeah,
contribution.
I'm very
to this.
into it.
I mean, it's hard to not like his voice as an animator. He has a voice, I think, tailor made for animation.
Oh no, I agree with. It's just like I don't know what it is about the Phil character that I didn't, or that I don't love. He's fine. It's there, right? But I don't know. I feel like I could have used more jokes from Phil, and Phil was the comic relief to a very large extent. But I feel like I could have used more jokes. It could
I'll
have
tell
been
you
funny.
one thing you won't see in a Disney movie now: the way his character acts towards females in this film.
Yeah,
Which
No,
I mean,
you
look,
won't
it
see
is
that.
what it is. But
Yeah.
talk about Disney would not do that now.
No.
There's a lot of things in that
Different
movie that
tone.
Different tone
Yeah.
for sure. So the jokes.
So I have this one earned me a lot of hate from my wife. So I loudly booed at the somebody call IXII, right?
Oh, I laughed. I thought it was
So
funny.
it's a Roman numeral. This is a Greek story. The Greeks had their own number system that was not Roman numerals.
They did, but they're using the Roman names for all these. It should have been
I know.
Jupiter and Hercules.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
I think it's a good joke. I like the you want to buy a sundial?
That's great.
That's
That is
hilarious.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's a great one. There's a lot of physical looking comedy. Like when you brought up the kind of like screwball comedies, like I can see that coming from this, right? Like in the training sequences, when he ties up the Hydra, and even the more violent parts where he's like cutting off the Hydra's heads, right? Like it's still physically funny to see those things.
First of all, I don't think they would do a live action version of this. It would be too expensive, but please do not. None of the physical comedy that works in this film with the animation would translate to live action. It wouldn't work.
I just have like a nightmare vision of like The Rock playing Hercules in a live action version of this.
I think,
oh gosh.
You see it happening. You can
they
see
have
it happening.
they have to go with someone with hair, so maybe Chris Hemsworth.
Oh, equally bad.
Yeah.
Equally
If you're
bad.
going to pick anyone, Hemsworth is not a bad choice, but think about what the budget would be live action. I honestly don't think Disney would do it.
No, you couldn't.
No.
It would be mad. It would be Avengers level, I would think, from a budget perspective, just to get the set pieces right,
Just
the
to bring in
backgrounds, everything.
especially the baddies in the film, getting them in a live action would be a little tough.
Yeah, how would
Yeah,
you do Hades? Like,
You couldn't. Any voice that's not James Woods' voice coming out of a Hades character wouldn't work. It would instantly disqualify the movie.
you'd have to go in a totally different direction, like what they did with Will Smith as the genie in the Aladdin remake.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, it's like with the Little Mermaid live action, which eventually we'll talk about that movie someday.
I hope not.
Melissa McCarthy, I don't think she did a Melissa McCarthy Ursula. She just
She was the Ursula?
Yeah. And she just did her best impression of the animated version.
She's not villainous
Ursula.
at all. What the hell were they thinking? Well, there's a reason why that bombed. I mean,
yeah.
Yep, there sure is. Trying to go other jokes again. Like it to me is just it's hard for me to separate out a lot of things in Hercules because to me it all works as a big cohesive whole. Aside from James Woods, right? There's really no standout vocal, like voice acting performances, but they all work really, really well together. Aside from the Hydra fight, there's no big, massive action sequences, but the whole movie works really well from a pacing perspective, right? Which we haven't really talked about the pacing of the movie. It's about 90 minutes, and I didn't feel it, right?
no,
I didn't
it never drags.
Nope. It's very good cadence from beat to beat to beat, and it moves, and you don't ever feel like, oh man, I can't believe this scene is still on. All the interjections of the muses come at just the right times when they need to do some exposition, they need to change some stuff up. You're waiting for a song, and the songs happen at all the right times too, right? There's never a point where I'm like, oh man, it's been a while since we've heard a song. It's just a beautiful, tight, cohesive whole to me.
Yeah, the transition from Hercules is trying to sell himself to the masses, but then transition that into he goes from zero to hero with the muses just singing his praises, I think is one of the most fun exposition dumps that you can have in a film. And I think that sometimes, like, there's so many times it could have just been a voiceover. It could have been a character just talking through, but they do it very high energy. Again, very well animated. A lot of meta humor in there with a product placement. It's just so enjoyable.
Yeah, and they touch on his actual labors too during the Zero to Hero segment, right? You see the lion, you see him holding up the pillars. Like there's a lot of
Scar.
Right,
that's true.
Scar.
Yeah, yes. You know, and I think everything in terms of the comedy. One of the aspects that I also really enjoyed is the earned moments don't feel too cheesy, despite starting to kind of fall into a more serious tone. Whether that's he's powerless, but he's fighting the Cyclops. You really truly buy in that he's been proving himself a hero, but even in this very selfless, sacrificial moment, he's still continuing to be a hero, and it doesn't feel cheesy, I think.
Right. And you understand at the end when he's willing to die to save Meg's soul, like why at that point he earns his immortality back, right? And because it's trite, right? Oh, the hero, of course, is willing to sacrifice himself to save somebody else. That's what really makes him a hero, not his strength or his bravery. But it's just well done. It doesn't feel forced. It's like you as an audience member, you're like, oh yes, of course, that's why he survives, because now he has earned
everything feels earned.
Back. Even at the very end when he chooses to leave Olympus and go back to be immortal with Meg, it feels earned. It doesn't feel like, cheesy. It's coming because of course it's coming, but you don't hate when it happens.
Last thing we want to talk about, because I know we're coming up on time, so I want to be cognizant of that. I think the soundtrack absolutely slaps. It's
banger
not
after
as
banger.
Iconic as a lot of the other Disney Renaissance stuff, though.
And yet it should be.
It should be. I think all the songs are bangers.
It is so much fun. It is. We watch this a lot as a kid. And growing up, we watch this a lot. My sister and I especially love the music from this film to this day.
Go the Distance is one of my favorite Disney songs.
It's a great song in general. It's just so good.
It is.
It's perfect for Disney. It is quintessential Disney, and the fact that it wasn't. I have my ideas, right? Like I said, there's a lot of gaps in between verses where there's dialogue in the film, right? So it's hard to translate to like a soundtrack or a pop song kind of POV, but it's a quintessential Disney song. And the fact that Zero to Hero is fantastic, don't get me wrong, right? Upbeat, great gospel tune. This should have been like, to me, the song. But when I told people, I was like, oh, hey, I'm watching Hercules, I'm going to do a podcast, blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, Zero to Hero, great song. Zero to Hero, great song. But Go the Distance to me was the one.
Go the Distance is the one that the Academy recognized. They nominated it for Best Original Song.
Yeah, and I love Alan Menken to this day. He's still working. Not only just all of the impact that he's made with all of his Disney work, but of course he's still working on Broadway.
I just saw Little Shop last night. Actually, I was off-Broadway version of Little Shop. Unbelievable.
Oh, that's amazing. And he handpicked Michael Bolton for this. So very cognizant, like just he knew who he wanted. He knew who he wanted.
He's the right choice for this. He really is.
It couldn't have been anyone else.
The reason why I brought him up at the top of this episode is like people clown on him, but like I do like some of his stuff. He's a great singer.
As someone who's like, for a lot of years, I played guitar, right? I was a professional musician for 10 years before I got into the corporate world. And I used to always take issue with people who would say like, oh, so-and-so sucks, right? Like, well, listen, they've gotten to a certain level where they objectively do not suck. They don't. There's just someone like Michael Bolton who has made a career the way he's made a career. You can clown on him for being like goofy, I guess, but you can't ever say that he's not at the absolute pinnacle of his profession for all the things that he was doing in the 90s. It's wild to be handpicked by someone of the caliber of Menken to sing your song. It's wild. That's just such a level of talent that I was pretty good. Could throw a football over them mountains, but like Michael Bolton's great. He was great. Perfect for the song.
Fun fact, the Spanish version was sung by Ricky Martin, who also
did a bunch of Disney stuff, right?
Yeah, and he also just appeared again in the
Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly.
Alan Menken never misses. I wrote that down.
Yeah,
he just never did not hit a home run.
Yeah, and he if you're gonna lose that year in the Academy Awards, Titanic was gonna win.
Sure.
And My Heart Will Go On. Look, that song's endured. Shouts out Celine Dion. But this is a fantastic original song.
I like all the songs in here. I Won't Say I'm in Love.
That's
perfect use of the music or the chord. The chord. Oh, it's so good. I liked all the songs. I do have to say though, like this is nothing to say of our appreciation for the soundtrack, but I think it's something that has worked against this film over the years. It is just simply not on the level of cultural resonance that stuff like Be Our Guest, A Whole New World, Can You Feel the Love Tonight? It is definitely a tier or two below that.
Which is saying something, right? It gets still, to your point, Menken doesn't miss, right? So for something this good to be a tier or two below the other soundtracks, to me, is like, that says more about those soundtracks than it says about
Yeah.
the Hercules soundtrack.
Yeah,
For
that's
sure.
how good he is. Like, this is like B-level Menken.
It's better than things that no one else could ever do anything that's good.
No.
Right? But it is true that going into this, I was like racking my brain. I was like, oh, what did that song sound like? How does Zero to Hero go? Like, I was having that experience of like getting back into the movie and being like, oh yeah, right, that's the melody for Go the Distance. That's how Zero to Hero goes. It didn't, like, I could call up Friend Like Me, Prince Ali, any of those, Circle of Life. They just play on a loop in my head whether I want them to or not.
Yeah,
As soon as I
like
get
the Little
reminded of it.
Mermaid stuff, the Beauty and the Beast stuff. It's like it's some of the most famous pop music
Mhm.
from the 20th century.
Yes, easily. And and Hercules didn't get to that level, which I do think, to your point, it probably counts. It counts against Hercules, which isn't fair because, like I said, it's just because the 3 batters before you hit a grand slam, if you hit a double, that's still really great.
Right.
Thank you for getting on base, right? Like,
Mhm.
it shouldn't count against Hercules, but I do think it does.
Yeah, I think there is also another element of the style and being ahead of its time that it just didn't put this film ahead in 97. The doo-wop track of I Won't Say I'm in Love, Zero to Hero having like Zero to Hero and the muses in general, a lot of the gospel inclusion, that is very different style from the Disney classics before it. Again, very, very different. And while audiences weren't ready for it then, you can really look to today and where the music from this film ranks, very beloved.
Agreed. And you can't fault Menken for wanting to experiment too with different styles of music.
That's what you want.
Yeah, like that's what you should be going for with your musicians. You should be saying like, hey, I have a vision for this film. My vision for this film, for the songs in this film, is that they're very influenced by African American culture. They're very gospel heavy, very harmonized, lots of powerful vocals. And he went for it. He nailed it. And it just, if the audience doesn't buy it, it happens sometimes. But again, right, it's just banger after banger on the soundtrack.
Yeah, and you get Danny DeVito singing.
That's true.
One Last Hope.
Always fun.
Always fun.
Well,
Always.
anything to add? Because we've gone through the notes.
Did anyone ever catch the animated series?
I've seen a couple episodes of it.
Yeah, it was like kind of after my time. Like by that point, I was watching like Ren and Stimpy and Beavis and Butthead, I think.
Yeah, it was. They ran a lot of reruns on Toon Disney, so that's where I caught most of it. I think that it felt cheaper compared to the movie, obviously.
No Gerald
and
Scarfe.
Also no Gerald Scarfe.
No.
And the Hercules you get, it isn't like buffed up Hercules in the film. It's skinny Cleese, the whole series. So
nice.
It is what it is.
Yeah, I think the last thing I'll say before I think we'll talk about how much we enjoyed it, which is kind of obvious, but just one more real quick double middle finger to the critics who just shat on the animation. It's disingenuous, and it was disappointing to read that from prominent critics.
Objectively wrong.
I'm interested to see if anybody comments on the episode about like, hey, no, actually the animation was terrible. I would just love to hear reasons about it, but I won't buy anything.
I don't see how anyone could really object, other than like I don't like Scarfe's animation style, but to say that this isn't well animated is, I just don't understand how anyone could feel that way.
I would say drugs, but no, that only enhances your appreciation for Scarfe.
I think it would, yes. So, well then,
most often.
Let's give our ratings. Adam, as the guest, you always have the opportunity to go first if you'd wish.
Yeah, I'll go first. I give Hercules a very, very solid B+. It is, like I said, very beautifully animated. I think James Woods' performance as Hades clearly steals the show, and I could watch 2 hours of James Woods being Hades and be thoroughly entertained the entire time. And when you couple it with a classic Menken soundtrack, a pretty decent voice cast, and what I think is a great low stakes, super fun, tightly woven story, easily a B+. And I think the only thing that keeps it from getting an A from me is that it is a little bit I just didn't love Hercules as the title character, as the hero. I think, he could have been a little more interesting, a little more well-rounded, but everything else easily makes up for that for me.
Give me 1 second while I let my sister-in-law inside. Anton, you might as well give your rating now then.
Yeah, I just want to say this, when it comes to Hercules adaptations, whether live action, film, live TV series, animated, this is my favorite one. And even, which is so ironic that it's so far from the source material, but I think like that is just a huge testament to how well the film is just able to adapt something that is a bit darker, is not necessarily like appropriate for kids, but still make it so enjoyable. And I think that there's so many elements in this film that were again ahead of its time. The incorporation of musical stylings from multiple cultures, the animation, really drawing such inspired stuff that distinctly different from films immediately before coming into this in the Renaissance. And while a bit risky just because it was so different, I think that this is one of those films that much later people really appreciate more. I have always been a fan of this film. I continue to be. And I think and especially the music in this film endures. And I really, really encourage our listeners, if they haven't seen it, to go check it out and give this film its due, because it really is so underrated. Yeah, I think that I can't think of another Hercules adaptation that I enjoy more than this one. And yeah, the only other one that really comes to mind is Troy McClure in The Erotic Adventures of Hercules. Which
I remember him from that film.
Which just, again, that's just a footnote in history. I have to go ahead and give this film a B+.
I just want to piggyback on one thing you said, right? If you haven't seen it, see it. And if you haven't seen it in a while, highly, highly recommend you see it again now. Either having listened to this or just for your own purposes. Go back and revisit Hercules. Totally worth it.
I don't have a ton else to add what both of you just said. I hadn't seen this in many years. I was so pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed rewatching it. If you haven't seen this in a while, just go watch it. This visually alone, this is a triumph. Scarfe and Disney were a perfect match. And the result, I think, is some of the most creative animation the studio's ever done. This looks glorious on a big TV. The soundtrack is a banger. James Woods is such a fun, memorable villain in Hades. Yes, the story is light, it's fluffy, there is not much emotional depth to it, but why does every Disney movie need to be that? I don't think it should be held against this film, but I understand why this didn't resonate with audiences the way some of the other Renaissance stuff does. This is a bit of an outlier in the Renaissance. I think primarily because it is sandwiched between two superior films, The Hunchback of Notre Dame and Mulan. I gave both of those films an A-. I'm going to give this a B+ with the same as both of you. It's definitely be watching
those
this
other
again.
two.
You were what?
It's so close to those other two.
It
B+,
really is.
But it's right there. It just Hunchback and Mulan have a little something that elevates them.
They have some drama in them that I think this just doesn't. But this wasn't trying to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. This was trying to have a good time. And as you established, Pat, right, this was trying to tell a superhero story before superhero movies became the thing I'm not going to say that they are today.
Right. Well, great having you on, Adam. This was a ton of fun.
It's always a pleasure, gentlemen. Always a pleasure to sit here and wax poetic about the finest Disney has to offer.
We're going to have you back soon for another technically Disney movie.
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
We won't say what it is yet, but
we'll see if the finest Disney has to offer holds up when I come back for that.
Boy. I was going to say, mark those words.
Yeah, we may come back. It may come back to haunt us. But until then, thanks for listening and see you next time on Why Wasn't It Better?